Hello, my name is Christine, aka Crafty Potential, and I'm on the design team for Arden Creative Studios. And for today's video, as part of the New Year, New You kind of campaign that's going on at the moment, I thought we could play around with the Remembering paper pad and also the Remembering alphabet stickers and create a 10-minute kind of make of a card that anybody can make. So if you're a beginner card maker, this would be perfect for you because the only tools that we're going to be using is a ruler and a glue stick to actually put this card together. So it's going to be a really nice, quick and simple make. So stay tuned to see how we're going to bring this card together. Okay, so the first thing we want to do for our card is decide what size card blank you want and then create yourself a mat of card that is just a little bit smaller around the edges. You can use scissors, you can use your paper trimmer, you can use a craft knife and a ruler, whatever you prefer to cut your card and mat down to size. I like to work on a weird size. It's kind of like in between an A6 and an A2 card, but it's roughly 10.5 centimetres by 13.5 centimetres, and then so the panel is 10 centimetres by 13 centimetres if you do like the size that I make and you wanted to be able to make it the same as well. But first of all, we're going to put that to one side. That's what we're going to be working on. But now we want to look through our Remembering paper pad, which has got some stunning designs in here. There's all sorts of gorgeous themes to go along with remembering older relatives, different times in history, different activities and things that maybe you would want to document and journal. There's all sorts in here. But actually for this card, we're going to be focusing on mostly the backs of these pages. So even though there are some stunning designs on the fronts of the pages, there's also beautiful designs on the backs as well that we can utilise to create a fun stripy kind of background for our cards. So I've picked out 4 different papers, all in a bluey green kind of theme. I thought this would be a nice nod to a masculine card as well if you struggle with that too. And I'm actually using a couple of scraps that are left over from the plain paper from a different card that I made. This was also left over from a poppy card that you may have seen already, the video that I did on that, but I really loved the background pattern on the opposite side. And then I've also picked out this piece of paper that's got some gorgeous vintage photos on the back, but a lovely subtle grid pattern on the back of it. And then I've also picked out the tea and baking kind of themed one that's got a really lovely subtle design on the back too. So we're going to play around with strips of these. I've already got a few of them ready just so you don't have to watch me tear all of them. I'm not sure how many we're going to need for the card. Possibly just a couple more from this pattern might finish it off, or maybe 3 from this pattern. But basically, to keep this card really simple and not many tools needed, instead of perhaps using some fancy edged scissors or a die to cut a pretty edge along your card, or even instead of hand tearing, which can be difficult sometimes, especially if you're got trouble with your hand and you can't grip things tightly, you may get a tear that goes completely off plan. So my top tip is take any ruler that you've got, working on the side, there's usually a side that bevels down towards your cardstock, working on that side because it makes it easier. Lay this down onto your pattern paper, and don't forget, if you want to make it more precise, you can use your grids on your grid mat to line this up properly as well. I tend to always tear at an angle, so I'm just going to go off at an angle. And all you want to do is hold your ruler down as firm as you can, and then pick up the edge of your paper here, and when you're tearing it, you're going to tear towards the ruler so that it's going to give you a straight torn edge, but it is still going to give you a little bit of that feathering that everybody loves from a lovely torn edge of paper. So we're just going to tear this piece up here, and I should possibly be able to use that twice with the length of this, so I will just do 2 of these rather than having too many for the card. But we're just going to do the second one, moving our ruler along and then tearing again. So we've got all of our strips now, but we can always come back and add more if I haven't quite done enough. So I'll move those off to one side. And now we want to bring in our panel of cardstock. So just the singular panel of cardstock, we want to bring that back into play. And then we want to bring in our strips of paper. Now I know that this piece of paper from the paper pad is 8 inches wide, and my card blank is a tiny bit shorter than 4 inches, so I should be able to repeat some of these pieces and use them twice on my card if I line them up to the edge of the card as I'm sticking them down. So keep that in mind for making your supplies go further as well. And then all we're going to do is layer these up on top of each other. We're just going to start from the bottom so that we can have an actual pattern right as the bottom piece of our design, and then we're literally just going to pick a random order and layer these up our card like so. So for the first one, I'd go for the one that maybe doesn't have the torn edges on both sides, and we can just stick that one at the bottom. And a glue stick is perfectly fine for this, but if you have double-sided adhesive or a white PVA glue that you preferred to use, or a tape runner, then use that as well. But I just thought most people have probably got a glue stick around, so I thought this might be a good adhesive to show. And then we can just place the first one lining up the corner with the bottom corner of our panel. And the great thing about a glue stick is it's a bit slippy, so we can actually slide it into position to get it in the perfect place along the bottom of our card. Although, if you do go over the edge, we can trim it later, and some of these end pieces we will be trimming, but because I think maybe I might want to use the other portion of this piece, I'm lining it right up against the edge so that I can actually trim this off, and I'll have another panel of that in case I need it for later. So we've got our first one down, like so. Sorry, I went off camera then. And then I think let's go with the green for the next pattern. And this time we're overlapping our previous piece. You can overlap by however much you want to. And I'm going to make sure that the torn edge is overlapping onto our previous colour, because then it's going to give us this beautiful, almost ruffled, lacy sort of effect down the card with all of these torn edges layering on top of each other. And we just want to do exactly the same thing again, just using our glue stick to add glue to the back of our strip of paper, and then we can just place this on and stick this down. And I'm going straight for this one. I'm trying to try and put them all horizontally, but don't worry if things go off a little bit. I think it looks nice having a little bit of wonky angles for stripy backgrounds and things, so do not worry if you do go a little bit wonky as you're putting these pieces on. So we've got our beige kind of grid pattern, this beautiful green colour. I think next let's go for this sort of deeper blue colour. So let's put this one into position as well. And this one is a scrap from a previous card that I was making. So this is almost just the perfect size. So do look at your scraps as well, because this would be a fantastic card for using up scraps that you've got left over as well. Okay, so we've got the next one on. Then let's come to this green one, and again this piece is the full 8 inches, so I know that I could stick this right up against the edge here and be able to use this piece again, so I'm going to do that because then it saves us a little bit of paper. So I'm just going to add more glue stick all along the strip of paper and then line it up to the white against the edge. It can go a little bit over because I know this is a little bit longer than twice the width of my card. And then press this down, and for this one we will trim this off again at the moment because I could use that for another panel. So we're pretty much halfway for our card now, but I do think we're going to need slightly more than we currently have, which is good that we've been saving those extra pieces, and we can actually utilise one of them now. If we bring in the next grid pattern, we can layer this one on top. Just make sure nicely covered with glue, and then layer this one. Again, don't forget, you can go further down because we're going to repeat this pattern, and I know it's going to take more than we currently have. I'm actually going to bring that one down a bit lower, so we've now got kind of a few wider stripes and then a narrower stripe, and then maybe when we bring in the next of this dark green we could make it a narrower stripe again, and then we'll do wider stripes just to vary it a little bit. So let's stick this one on like so. It's quite good actually using a grid paper because you can line up straight along the grid lines in the design, which is quite nice. So we can layer that one up. Then the next colour in our order, if you want to stick to the order, you don't have to at all. You could use a different colour for every single one of these strips if you want to. But to go along with our colour scheme, I will use the next blue one. And we're going to leave a wider green stripe, I think, this time, and then put our blue one on. So we can add glue to the back of this one as well, and place this one on top, like so. Then next in our order is back to this green one, which we have a leftover scrap of, which is nice. So we can add another wide stripe going with this pattern again. And then when we get to the next piece, we can decide, do we want that to finish off our card? Do we want the grid to be at the top like this, or do we want to sneak in another pattern? We would have to tear another piece of this because I haven't got enough left, but we could finish with the grid, or we could bring in another pattern at the top. I think finishing with the grid is going to look nice because then you've kind of got 3 of them going down the card and it balances that design quite nicely. So I am just going to go with the grid on the top, but I don't want a full piece of grid like this. So I am going to make this one a wider green stripe and put this piece further up like so. I know you're not going to be able to see where you're going over the edge, but we'll be able to trim it off from looking at the back later on. So I'm just going to add some glue, mostly to the bottom edge of this piece, so pressing along that bottom edge so that we get a nice lot of glue along there, so it's going to stick nicely onto our card, and then place that into position and press firmly down. So once we've got everything stuck into place onto our background sort of card panel, we can flip it over and see that this one is overhanging, so we're not going to have quite such a large piece at the top there. And all we need to do, let's trim that off because we could save that for another card like this if we want to. And then we can just trim against the white panel. So basically you're just taking your scissors. I probably should have said at the beginning, another tool you're going to need are some scissors as well, but I think everybody has a ruler, some scissors and some kind of adhesive, so I think most of you will easily be able to create this card. And we're just lining up the blade of our scissors against this white panel as we're cutting, and then we're going to still have the same size panel as when we started, but all of these overhanging edges are going to be trimmed off nice and neatly, like so. So there we have our gorgeous panel that's going to go onto our card blank and leave us with a little white border. And now all that's left to do really is to add a sentiment onto this, and within the Remembering collection we have some alphabet stickers that are going to be perfect for getting our sentiment onto our card. So I think I'm going to go for just a simple sentiment on this card. I don't want to cover up too much of our gorgeous papers, so I think thanks is a brilliant sentiment to go for. Now, to be able to line up your letters and also kind of decide where you want your sentiment to go on your card, a top tip is to actually take your ruler that you were using earlier, and then when you take your letters off the sheet, so we're looking for a T, got one down here, just stick the tiniest like millimetre or two on the edge of your ruler, and then when we've put the whole word on there in a second, you can take your ruler up to your card and decide, do I want to put it directly onto the card? Maybe I want the card to be landscape instead of portrait. Is it going to stand out enough, and do I need to put another piece of card behind it, like white card, and then cut around it to make it fit better or to stand out more on my card? So we're just going to start by adding our letters onto our ruler. So we're going to go with capital to begin with, and then do the lower cases for the rest of the word, just so that it's hopefully a shorter sentiment. I think if you went all capitals it may be too long for this card, but it does depend what sized card you're working on as well. So we're just going to build up our word, and got a K here, and then finally the S. And you may notice on my sheet actually that I've been cutting into this as well, because not only can you use the letters from this sheet, you can use the negatives too. So if you wanted a funkier kind of look for your sentiment, you can actually cut a box around one of the letters. Perhaps you're duplicating a letter in a word, like for example 2 P's in happy, or maybe 2 I's in thinking, and you don't want to use up all of your letters. You can utilise those box pieces and actually alternate, like a box. Instead of the actual T being there, you have a box, and then you have the T would be whatever's pattern papers showing through underneath. So it's a really nice way of making your alphabet stickers go further as well. So now we've got our whole sentiment on our ruler, we can bring this back in and decide, do we want this to go directly onto our card blank, and where is the best place going to be? If we put it over that grid too much, it's too similar in colour. If we put it more over the darker tones, it stands out a little bit more. Do we want it overlapping 2 stripes in the middle? Do we want it standing on the edge of a stripe? Do we think this is going to stand out enough? Do we want it further towards the bottom? You know, there's lots of different questions you may be asking as to where you want to put your sentiment on your card. I'm kind of thinking down there actually is going to look nice. So going more towards the bottom of the card, and also going more so that it is sort of standing on the bottom edge of that blue strip there. I think I might want to move my H over a tiny bit. Just reposition that a little bit before I commit to sticking this down. Or maybe I will move the T. It's because the T and the H are just touching at the top there. Yeah, I think that's going to look a little bit better. So now we can just position this on our card. I think it's roughly straight. And then press the tops of these letters down. And then you can kind of manoeuvre your ruler out from underneath the rest of the letters. Keep pressing from the top to make sure they're stuck, and then the ruler will gently let go of the letters. I think the end did move a tiny bit. I'm just going to reposition that. You do have a little bit of time with these letters to pick them up and reposition them if you're not quite happy with the layout of them. But I think that finishes off this card really nicely, just with a little thanks along the bottom. I do think I need to rearrange this T again. That's better. Possibly the K could do with a little bit of rearranging as well, but you don't have to, you know, be too worried about them being straight. You can make them typically or like on purposely wonky as well, so that you don't have to worry about them being straight. But I think that just makes a really lovely, simple card. And if you have more things in your stash, and maybe you're not a beginner card maker but you like the idea of this card, you can always step this up more. You can bring in a white gel pen and do some like faux stitching details along here. You could even bring in your sewing machine and do some beautiful like zigzag sewing stitches along some of these pieces as well, just to add in even more design elements to this card too. But I think just leaving it really simple like this is going to be perfect for this 10-minute kind of card, even though the video has gone on longer than 10 minutes. But when you're making this at home, you won't be explaining how to make it, so it should be a nice, quick and easy card to make. And then all we're going to do is just add some more glue stick on the back of our panel, and then adhere this onto our card blank. And there you've got a super duper quick, easy, simple and gorgeous looking thank you card to give to somebody. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and hope you're enjoying the whole New Year, New You kind of promotion that's going on at the moment as well. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!